Good evening and welcome to our webinar tonight. We are going to be looking at engaging math activities, working with what you have in Classpad.net. For the sake of webinar quality, we're going to keep everyone muted and all videos turned off except for the presenter. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat panel and one of our moderators will respond back, or we will stop the presenter and have them respond back to the entire group. My name is Amy Chow, and I will be moderating tonight. I am Casio's National and Training Product Manager. You can see my bio here. And presenting for us tonight is Dr. Karen Greenhouse, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen. I recognize a lot of you, so you're probably tired of me introducing myself, but I am currently a adjunct professor at Drexel University. I've been teaching math for 30 years, and I have had a passion for technology and integrating that in math, so that's sort of what today's focus is on. There's a couple new people that I am seeing, so I am going to send out a poll real quick because we are going to be working in Classpad.net. I'm going to show you my screen first. There it is. Can everyone see that, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm working in Classpad.net. Everything we're doing is in Classpad.net, and if you were in the waiting room, hopefully you saw the little message that I would love for you to actually participate and join in. So if you have an account, signing in would be great because we're going to actually look for activities and save them to your account and maybe even kind of talk about creating activities. So if you have an account, it's nice if you kind of play along. What I want to do first, real quick, is just send out a poll just to get a sense of how much I need to do an overview of Classpad. So if you could answer with a response that best kind of describes where you are. I'm pretty excited. It looks like everyone at least has an understanding of what it is. So that is fantastic. That will help a lot. Not everyone is responding, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to end it so that we can move on. So it looks like from those of you that responded that most people have at least an understanding of what Classpad.net is. If you don't have an account, you can just kind of watch. If you do have an account, again, I kind of recommend that you open your account because I'm going to be kind of showing you how to find activities, how to save them if you like them, that type of thing. So the next thing I would really like, because it's going to help us focus, help you focus on this. This whole session is about working with what you have. So knowing what you're teaching, knowing your curriculum, and how could you tweak your curriculum or find things that support your curriculum and not have to reinvent the wheel, like use stuff that's ready to go or take something from a textbook and just make it a little bit more interactive with Classpad. So that's where we're going with this. So what I would like everyone to do real quick just in the chat panel is kind of in your head, pick a topic or a subject or a content that you are teaching, and that's what I want you to focus on because I'm going to ask you to do some searching for some activities. So it's helpful if you have a goal. So in the chat panel, if we can just kind of get some ideas of what everyone's going to think about, focus on. I'm going to steal one of your ideas if I don't. So in the chat panel, what topic do you personally want to be thinking about as we're doing this webinar? And that'll just help me focus as well. Anyone in the chat panel? All right, so Tom's looking for recursive sequences. Awesome. Graphing, trig functions. Awesome. Direct proportional relationships. All right, so the goal is, and then this is, you know what you're teaching. That's how I want you to think. So I'm going to be focusing on, I think I'm going to go with data, like statistics, like simple histograms and dot plots. So that's my focus. And I'm going to use that to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about is a lot of teachers don't use technology because they always tell me, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to learn it. I don't have time. I have so much I have to cover. I can't be looking and finding and creating new things. So the first part of this is you don't have to do that. Look for something that is going to support the topics you're already teaching. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of material out there already that's done, and all you have to do is use it instead of something maybe that's in your curriculum. So you're not reinventing the wheel, you're just doing a little more dynamic or engagement. So I want to show you two ways to find activities in Classpad. So this is Classpad.net. This is the landing page. If you have an account, you already have been here before, so you know. If you don't have an account, really easy to create one. Just click this button, kind of go through the steps, sign up with your email. On this page, there are actually two places where you can get to activities. If you look across the top bar in the right-hand corner, there's this activities link. And then if you were to scroll down, you can see other links. These are all the same links, so you can kind of access it two different ways. If you're on the landing page and you hit activities, this is one way to search for activities where we, and by we I mean Amy and I, have basically organized some activities. We've picked some sample activities and organized them so that you can quickly focus on a topic and find an activity right from this page without having to go into Classpad.net initially. So I'm focusing on statistics. So if you notice, we've organized this by the sticky. So the calculate sticky means these activities are going to have to do with calculations. There might be other things going on, but we're really focused on calculations. Graphing, so those of you who are thinking about trig functions, you might want to look for an activity that's in this section. Proportional relationships, same thing here. Geometry, if you were going to focus on geometry, you would want to look here. I'm going to focus in data, and I have my focus. I'm looking for an activity. Maybe I'm teaching tomorrow on histograms, so I want to find an activity that's sort of got something to do with histograms, and let's say I'm teaching middle school. So all you do on this page is figure out where it might work, and when I click this, you'll see whatever you've decided to click on. So you click on this little arrow, and it does a drop down of activities that are related to what you chose, and so you'll notice it's the title of the activity, and then kind of brief tags that kind of give you a hint about what the activity is about. So what was I looking for? I was looking for something about histograms. So if you notice, there's several activities in here that seem to have histograms in them, right? So I could look at any one of them. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes right now, just on your own, to find an activity that is related, might have something to do with the topic that you were interested in focusing on for this webinar. So I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to do that. And when you find one, all you're going to do is hit it. So I'm going to choose, and it should open up the activity that you chose. So hopefully your activity is not exactly the same as mine, but you've chosen one that works for you. So I'll give you just a couple minutes. Move my picture out of there. This is very slow loading. Amy, what do we think's going? Oh, there you go. Just really slow. Could be my internet. Oh, I know why it's slow, because it has a video in it. All right. So stop me if I'm going too fast, but hopefully everyone's found an activity. You've opened it up, and so the next step is you know what you're teaching, you know what you're trying to cover, kind of browse through the activity real quick and see if it addresses the content that you are looking for. So I'm looking for something that has to do with histograms, and so this looks like they have a little video here that is talking about the machines, and we've got candy, and the students are going to collect their own candy and count the colors and the numbers, and then they're going to make some graphs, and if I didn't have candy for the kids, there's supplied data already, and they're going to make some plots. So this one looks like a really good activity. So first thing you do is, what's your content? Look for an activity, look through it and say, yeah, this kind of works. I might want to maybe add a question here, or maybe cut this piece out because I don't want them to see this, whatever you decide. But let's say you've now decided, I love this activity. You do have to have an account in order to do the next step. So those of you who are on that didn't sign up for an account yet, just kind of watch through this, and we do record these webinars and you can go back and look at them tomorrow. I'm already signed into my account. It looks like, yes, I am. If you're not signed into your account, you can do it right now. So you don't have to go back to the home page. If you're not signed into your account, the three dots, you should be able to come in here and it should say log in if you're not already logged in. So you want to log into your account, those of you who have an account. And once you're logged in, this little icon right up here on the right appears, which is a duplicate icon. So I've searched for an activity on the Classpad homepage. I found an activity I liked, and now I want to put it into my account. So that's where we're going. So once you decide you want to put it into your account, you hit this duplicate button, And what will happen, it looks like it disappears for a second, and basically what's happening is Classpad is taking the activity that was just on the home page and making a version that's now going to be in your papers. And I'll show you where it goes once it goes. Takes a little bit, and my internet is a little slow because of this video going on here. So it disappears for a second, and basically now what's going to pop up is the exact same activity, but now it's my version. It's in my account, and I can now modify it, edit, change, do whatever I want, add to it if I want. And I'll show you how you know the difference. It's really quite slow here. All right, so now it's in my account, and the reason I know it's in my account is this iCloud has appeared. And so I'm in my account. Those of you who will have an account, hopefully you're in your account and you saved that activity that you found. If you want to know where it went, that's where we're going to go next, because I'm going to show you the next way that you could search for activity. So over here in your account, so those of you not in an account, when you have an account, you get basically a storage area. And that's what this little icon here is, our paper stack. It's where our papers are going to be managed. So I'm going to click that, and everyone who's already signed in, do the same on your account. But click that. This is going to take me to my papers, where all the activities that I found or made are stored in my account. So that's where this is going right now. Slowly. We do have the storm coming, the remnants of the, oh, I don't know what that is. I get to claim some money. My goodness, very slow. I apologize. Okay, here's my paper management. So for those of you who have your account, you should hopefully be familiar with where your papers are stored. There's folders that you can create up here. So notice I have mine kind of organized by content and grade level. And where's that paper that I just copied? I don't remember what the name of it was.
Right there. Middle school statistics.
Oh, this one. So here's the paper. Here's the paper I just copied. So what happens when you find an activity and you duplicate it into your paper, it gets stored to like the top tier of your papers. If you know you want to put it somewhere else, so let's say you were looking for, you know, an algebra thing or a trig thing, and you have a trig folder, here's where you can now move it. So it's going to just store it in the first landing, but I'm going to go over to my 3 dots, and I want to move it to a different folder because this is middle school, so maybe I want to move it to my middle school folder. So those of you who have folders, this is how you would then just do that. I guess I don't have a middle school folder. Well, we'll just leave it where it is. I guess that's a sign to me that I need to get a middle school folder, but that's where you would move it. So now I want to show you another way to search. So you can search directly without being signed into your account. You can just find activities. You could use that activity with your students without anyone being signed into their account. So that's what these activities are here, is just go to an activity, open it up, students can do the same thing, and you can work on it, but nothing will be saved unless you put it in your account. When you're in your account, so this is our page management, another way to search is to click up here under search. So again, I want you to think of the topic that you were searching for before, and let's see if you can find a second activity. So this search basically lets you search in different places. It lets you search in your own papers. If you notice, I have 158 papers. That's up here. And maybe I've forgotten what I've done. I can search in my own papers. I can search in papers I've shared with others. And I can also search in the public papers. And the public papers is where you're going to find hundreds more activities that other Classpad users have shared publicly. And so when you do the search, you're going to click this, and I find that keywords are like the best way to find something. So I'm going to search for histogram. So think of, those of you who are doing this with me, just think of a word that, or keyword that represents what you're looking for, and put that in the search panel. And you can just hit enter, or you could hit the search button over here. So this is a second way that you can find activities. And I want to point out, so the first thing that comes up, if you look, there's a bunch of tabs here. the first thing that comes up are papers that you created or that are in your account that have to do with that keyword. So I obviously have I already have 2 activities. Well, there's the one I just searched for, just created, I think. Yeah, right there, date. And I have another one. So I could just, oh, that's good. I forgot I had that. I could use that paper. I could also look in public papers. And public papers is where you're going to get more options. Now, again, Classpad is newer, and so it doesn't have, you know, thousands of activities as, say, GeoGebra might, because we haven't been around as long. But there are more papers being added, you know, every day from different people. So if you don't find something specific to the topic you're looking for, you could create something, or maybe someone down the line is going to create it. But I'm going to hit public papers, and now what it's going to do is bring back all the papers that currently have a tag of histogram. So here's a couple more that do. And so maybe I say, oh, this one looks good. I want to look at, this is from a user. So over here on the right, you can see different people who have done it. So let's open this activity. So I want everyone to try and see if they can find another activity in public papers related to what you were looking for. And I'm going to open mine. And this is from a user. So you never know what, from the public papers, you know, they're not vetted by anyone. They're created by teachers and students. And so it's always good to open them and look at them and see if it addresses your needs. And if it does, you can duplicate it and add to it. But if it doesn't, then you go back and looking. So this is an activity that obviously someone created, and it's got tables, and it is explaining what each thing is. It has a histogram, and so then it asks some questions about this, and they have to change the numbers. So this looks like an interesting activity. Maybe it's too advanced for my middle school students, I don't know. But if I like it, I would go through the same process. I would hit duplicate, and it would get a copy of this activity into my papers that I could then modify, add to, change, add questions, whatever I want to do. So this first part was just to show you that if you know your curriculum and you know your standards you're trying to cover, you can add to what you have to teach, or supplement what you have to teach, or replace something, a lesson that you have in your curriculum, with a more dynamic possible lesson, simply by searching in either the home page or in the public papers. So before I move on, are there any questions about that? So this is basically how to use ready-to-use activities that could be replacements for what you have in your own curriculum. So you're not having to create anything, you're just using something someone else already did. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
I don't see any.
Excellent. So the next thing I want to do is, okay, so this is ready-to-use activities that are already created in Classpad.net. Well, sometimes you're like, well, I can't do that. I am restricted to the curriculum that I've been given, or I have to use the textbook. That's, you know, and there are places that require you can't go outside of what you're teaching, right? So what I wanted to talk about is how you could take your own curriculum, your textbook or whatever, and make it different, make it a little more engaging, make it a little more interactive using Classpad, and it's not that hard. So what I'm going to go into right now, I am not teaching in a K-12 environment. I'm teaching university. So I am going to use a Kendall Hunt examples, because these are products that I have access to. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a teacher using the Discovering Algebra book, right? And I want to create an activity. I don't want to reinvent the wheel again. I want to use a problem from the textbook I'm required to use, but I want to make it maybe a little more engaging or a little more interactive. And I want students to maybe do multiple representations. So this is just an example of how you can take your current work that you have and still use it, but just tweak it a bit to make it a little more interactive. So I'm going to open the teacher book. I've already kind of picked a lesson. So this is the ebook. Most teachers and schools these days do have ebooks or electronic curriculum, so it's pretty easy to kind of do a version. So I'm into the graphs of the real world situation, and I found, so this is a homework. So normally, I picked this problem just to kind of show you one way you can think about it. So let's say this was a problem I wanted to assign my students. And right now, it's a word problem, and it's basically trying to help students connect graphs and relationships between independent and dependent variables. And they're given the situation about a turtle that's starting out, stopping, being picked up, ran, all that stuff. And they're asked to pick from the 4 graphs below the one that best represents the situation. Well, that's not very interactive. That's not really letting me know if my students really understand that steadily means a constant rate, right? They could just guess. So I'm going to take this problem and basically ignore graphs. I'm not going to give them the graphs. I'm going to ask the students using Classpad to make their own graph and explain it to me, because that is a little more engaging and it also tells me a little bit more. So to do that, it's pretty easy. Whatever your curriculum is, this is an ebook. I'm just copying the words, and I'm going to go in and open a new page in my Classpad. So I'm in my account. I'm opening up a blank page, and I'm taking my curriculum, a problem directly from a textbook that I'm using, but I'm going to put it into Classpad and make it a little more engaging. So if I have text, those of you who've not worked in Classpad very much, when you click in Classpad, you have lots of options. You can do calculations, graphs, geometry, and text. So I'm going to take that text and just paste that problem in, and then I'm going to kind of tweak it a bit. So I like the situation, but I'm going to take out this question, and I want them to create their own graph. So I could pull up a graph, but let me just talk about the difference here. So my 2 places where I can do a graph are the graph sticky or the geometry sticky. And right now the geometry sticky doesn't look like a graph, but I can add in an axis, I can add in grids, I can add in labels. So I just want to show you what that looks like. So I can make a geometry sticky look like a graph. And so as the teacher, I'm trying to decide how am I going to make this more engaging. Well, I want the students to do a sketch of the graph versus giving them pictures to choose from. So in the graph sticky, I can't draw freehand yet. That's coming down the line, but right now I can't draw freehand. So I'm going to choose not to use the graphing sticky, but instead use the geometry sticky, because I have this draw tool here where they can draw their graph. So that's the choice I'm making. So all I'm doing is taking the problem from my textbook, putting it in Classpad in the text sticky, and then adding in a direction that says sketch in the graph using the draw tool. I don't know what I want to say. The situation, that's terribly worded, but that's how I'm going to think about it. So now, before I give this to students, I might want to set some things up. Like I might want to move this around. Notice I didn't put any numbers because there's no numbers here. Really, this is about, do they understand that steadily means constant rate? And do they understand that when the dog picks the turtle up and runs with it, that it's now going faster? The turtle's going to go faster, and it's going to get away from the pond faster than before. And so now I could give this to the student, and then I definitely want them to say, explain each part of the graph in the yellow sticky below. So now students have to basically draw each section of this situation in the graph and then explain why they did that, right? So then when they come here, and I've set up, there's the draw tool. So what does the axes mean? So the first thing they might do is, well, let's label this. We've got time, or maybe I do this ahead of time versus distance. And maybe I say, I might want to add up here, the turtle starts at 0, 0, which is the pond at time 0. right? So I want to make sure they know that this is where the turtle's starting. This represents the pond here, and we're asked to find his distance from the pond as these situations happen. So then what they have to do, it's really not much different than what it was before, except for they don't have a graph to pick from. They have to show me that they understand this. And so this just makes it a little more engaging. And so they could say, okay, well, the turtle crawls steadily. Crawling seems to be kind of slow, so he's not going fast. And steadily means constant. And so when they do that first section, they can just draw, you know, he's going kind of slow. All right, so maybe that's the first section. So then I might explain. The first part of the graph represents him constantly moving, but pretty slowly from the pond. So that's his distance from the pond. And then it says a small dog picks the turtle up and runs with it. Well, running means he's going a lot faster. So maybe now I need a steeper line. Okay, that's really fast. And then it says he slows down. So this is a little more engaging than it was originally in this text, but I didn't change anything. I didn't have to find anything. I used what I had. I just made it a slightly more engaging. So that's just an example of that. Let me show you another one. The whole idea is you can take things that you already have to teach and make them much more interesting and much more engaging and much more multiple representations, really, just by taking away some of the words or changing the directions or getting rid of the picture. So the next one, this is the Discovering Algebra, Advanced Algebra book, and I picked another problem to show you how you can actually use pictures also. So this is page 311. So again, if I'm teaching out of this book, I might, instead of just assigning the pages from the book itself, take a couple problems from it and make a little bit more interactive and more involved types of questions. All right, why isn't this going? Come on. Uh-oh. Oh dear. Let's try it again. Oh, snap. Technology is our friend. Let's remember that. All right, let's try it again. 311. There we go. All right. So this is a chapter on parabolas, right? So students have learned about parabolas. They've learned about the focus and the directrix and the equidistance. So this is basically an assignment that they have to do. And so I chose this problem because it's an application problem, right? They have a boat that's equidistant from that no matter where the boat is, it has to be equidistant from this rock and this shore, which is the directrix, right? So what you can do in problems like this, you can actually take the picture and make it interactive. So it's pretty easy. And if you're in a textbook, you can just right click. Now I'm on a PC, so I don't know what it is on a Mac, and copy save the image and save it somewhere. So I've already done that. It's saved here, so I don't need to do it again. But then when you go into ClassPad, and I'm just going to scroll down here to show you, you can put the picture in. And so again, there are two places in ClassPad where you can insert images. So the same decision as before. I could do it in graph or I could do it in geometry. Well, what am I going to ask students to do? Well, I want them to basically look at the first direction. I want them to sketch the situation, basically thinking about this situation with a parabola. So if I want them to sketch and add in, you know, perpendiculars and directions, I'm going to want geometry. So I am, again, deciding to use a geometry sticky because I want them to be able to draw on it. Eventually, graphing will also have that, but right now it doesn't. So I'm going to, here's a geometry sticky. My mouse is going crazy. I'm going to add in a picture. Oh my goodness. And it's pretty easy to add in a picture. You click the icon and click in the center and find your picture. And where was my picture? There it is. And then you open it. And so what it does is it brings the picture here and you hit OK and it puts it into your grid. And you can change the size here, or you can, a lot of times I just kind of zoom and let it change the size that way. But here's my picture, right? So let's hide this underneath. So here's the picture. And so then I want to get the directions. So again, I'm going to get a text sticky out. I'm going to go back to the problem, and I'm going to just copy and paste these directions into my text sticky. And then I can modify, add to, whatever. So I do want the situation there, and I do want them to make a sketch, but this time I might tell them, oh my God, my mouse is, I might say use the geometry tools to make a sketch of the situation that shows the path of the boat, right? So that's fine. Then I might say, okay, describe the path here. So maybe I want them to actually write here. And then they're going to talk about this, so they're going to have to write an equation. So I'm going to have them show their work and then maybe graph the equation in the graph sticky below. So I'm going to add a graph that they have to, oh my God.
It's just a runaway mouse today, huh?
It's crazy. It's driving me nuts. All right, so then I'm adding another representation. So I have them doing drawing and sketching with the tool, but then I also have them showing their work and putting in the equation and actually seeing the graph, and then maybe I might have them compare. So I might add a second step here. And so the nice thing about this is, let's remember where they were. They've already kind of well, hopefully, they have talked about the focus and the directrix and the equidistant and the perpendiculars. And so what they could then do is, okay, well, I know, and I'm going to turn off my labeling. I know that there needs to be a point here. Well, actually, I need a directrix. So maybe they get a line and they actually draw a line to represent the directrix. I cannot say that word. And let's put it up there. And then they know that this is a point. So what do they have right now? So maybe I ask them to identify what this is. So this is the focus. So they could, you know, label this. If we go to our, so afraid to use my mouse. If we go to our label, we could call that the focus, right? So I'm connecting this to what I am learning, and I'm trying to help you understand. And I know that this, let's label this, oops, I need to unlock that. Let's label this the directrix. Oh, I think it doesn't allow. So I've identified, so I'm showing my teacher, I know that that's this, and I know that I need a point here that's perpendicular under, so maybe then I'm just sketching at this point, but I know that there's a perpendicular bisector here, so I could add it, and then I could kind of trace the path, and then I talk about that. So the students have to show me a lot more, and they can do it on Classpad simply because I took the problem from the text. I didn't recreate the problem. I just took the problem, put it into Classpad, and added some things, and this now allows the students to have all their work and all the representations in one place. So that's just two examples of using like a textbook or your curriculum type of things. So before I go to the next examples, are there any questions anywhere?
I do not see any.
Okay. And so I wanted to end with, you know, teachers know their curriculum. They know what they have to teach. So using your own tools, your own textbook, and just making them a little more engaging is probably one of the easiest ways. Using ready-to-use activities that basically replace or support the curriculum is another way. So we've talked about that. But you can also go to open source activities and find much more engaging problems as well. Because oftentimes a textbook, while this is definitely a word problem or more of a problem-solving type problem, a lot of times it's hard to find them in our traditional text. So you can go find, again, knowing your curriculum, you can find things that are good examples. So one of the places, and I'm just going to use that, and I'm going to put it in the chat panel. If you've never explored Illustrative Math, that is an open source, free resource that I have been using a lot as, and making basically Classpad activities for them. So they have these, what they call tasks, and they follow the Common Core standards and stuff. So their tasks are much more involved type problems. So I just went and searched by grade level for the task, and this is a task that I've already converted. So I just wanted to show you how I have taken an open source problem and didn't reinvent the wheel. I took a problem that is freely used and basically modified it to be a little bit more engaging, interactive, dynamic by putting it to Classpad. So this is the original activity, right? So it's from Illustrative Math, and it's about a swimming, and they charging different prices for the pool, and basically you're comparing two different rates, and which one's best. You have to write equations. There's a lot going on here, right? So I took this. If you notice, they have to, which one would you do? Write an equation, write another equation, graph your equation. So there's a lot going on here, and Classpad was a perfect fit for it. So I want to now show you the Classpad version of this same activity. So let me get, and I'm going to put this in the chat panel as well. So the original is from Illustrative Math, and now this is that same problem, but the Classpad version of it. And when I do this, I do always note where I got the problem from and kind of say, so this is where my source came from, that's the task, but here's the difference. And if excuse me, I wanted to try to show you side by side so you can see the difference here. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. See all my desktop papers there. Uh-oh. Go back. All right. My brilliant plan to show them side by side is not being so brilliant. Nope. I don't know what happened to it. All right, so here's the problem. And if you can see, it's a little hard to see because things have gotten resized, but it's basically the same wording. And then but I don't have the questions up here in the description. Instead, oh, there we go. Instead, I've put the questions separately. So I have, the first one is, fill out the chart, finish the chart. So they're basically using the information to finish the chart. Then they make a scatter plot. Then they have to compare, and does it make sense to connect all the information with a line? If it does, write the equation. So they're doing a lot here. They're doing the problem, but in steps and using lots of different, so here's the calculate, here's the data, here's the graph. They're going to do equations. And then they have some questions, so some places for them to answer questions. So I've simply taken the Illustrative Math problem and made it a little bit more interactive, and they can do all the representations in the one place, and it's all there. So that's another way to think about making engaging activities. I didn't create the problem. That's what a lot of teachers are like, well, I don't have time to create problems. I just used a problem already done and just added in the little components for the students to be working on so that they can see all the different representations. So that was an example. So I wanted to end today showing you two other tasks from the Illustrative Math that I picked. And I want you in the chat panel to think about, and I'm going to send you this one. So this one is from a grade 5. So like in Illustrative Math, you can actually pick the grade and the domain and the cluster. So if you're familiar with the Common Core standards, that's what this is all coming from. And then here's this task. So this is showing me, this is the task. So I just want you to take a minute to read this task and think about how could you take this and put it into Classpad and make it interactive. What types of things might you do? So after you've had a minute to read it, I want you to just in the chat panel to throw out an idea of what you might do. I have some of my own ideas, but I kind of want to hear your ideas first. Anyone? No ideas? Okay, well, I am going to kind of show you some of the things I was thinking about. There you go. Thank you, Tom. That's what I was thinking too, because the minute that this problem, if you notice, it said draw a picture, and my first thought was geometry, they can totally do circles and divide them into 8 pieces and duplicate it. So that's how I would think. So I would get a geometry sticky. Well, actually, the first thing, so notice that I copied. I just, use my copy. And the first thing I would do always is to just paste the directions in here. I may change them later, but at least I have the original problem here so that I can kind of think about it. And notice when you paste, it kind of not ruins, but it takes away all the formatting. So I may or may not use these directions. I may split them up into separate text. So I might have, here's this situation, and then maybe I take this first one and make a second text box, because remember, you can add as much as you want. And this is the first thing I want them to do, right? So now I don't need that up here. And maybe I make this a little longer like that. So number 1, draw a picture, right? So I might then say, use the geometry tools to. So I'm not really changing the problem, I'm just adding to it and so that they can work with this. So then when we go into geometry, I put the sticky next to it for the students. So I'm kind of setting up the workspace for them and I do this ahead of time, and then that's what I send to the students. And so how could they draw? They could use the circle tool. I'm going to turn off my labeling again. The default, for those of you who haven't worked with Classpad, the default on the geometry stickies to label everything, I always turn it off. So the settings are always these 3 dots. I always turn it off, auto labeling, because a lot of times I don't want the labels. I just want them to do the work. So this is use the geometry to draw a picture showing it. So let's go back up here. What's something we have to keep in mind? Emily has 3 equally sized apple pies. That's really important. So how do you do equally on here? Well, if I draw a circle, and maybe I can click it. So there's my first circle, and I can duplicate. And I want to duplicate it twice. So now I have 3 circles. Whoops, 3 circles that are equal size. Right, so maybe that's the first step. So this is what I want students to be doing, and then they can somehow maybe they use their segment tool to divide it into 8 equal portions. So they could just use their drawing tool. So that's the first thing. And then what fraction? So then that's maybe the calculator, or that's maybe showing the numbers or talking about it. So all I'm doing is taking these tasks and adding in an extra component, the ability to draw, the ability to explain, the ability to do some calculations. And that's what Classpad allows you to do. So you can now have a task, and once you're done creating it and you're ready to send it to students, for those of you who've been on before, you know that you can share your papers. Those of you who have not been, up here in the 3 dots, once I create an activity, I can go down to share, and I can create the URL that I then send the students, and then they can work on this activity. So that's sort of the goal of today's webinar, is to show you different ways you can create or use already created activities with students without having to really do all that much work on your own. 7:15. I have one more problem, and then we'll call it a day, or I'll answer any questions for people who want to see things. But here's another just example of illustrative math. I really like the illustrative math because they are so easily converted, because there's lots of representations and problem solving and parts. And each part basically can be used as a different section. So take a second just to read this and think about, oh, there's a spelling mistake. Think about how you might be able to convert this into a Classpad.net. Like, how could you add to it to make it a little more engaging? Anybody have any ideas? If not, I'm going to just do a quick. I'm not seeing anything. So one thing, like originally in that last example, I copy and pasted everything, put it into one text sticky. Another, option is to just make a text sticky. Here's the situation. So your first thing is, here's the situation, and then let's just, how could I take this one question and modify it, add to it, so that becomes my first, directive. And what am I going to do here? And there you go, right, Patricia? You definitely want them to make and complete 2 graphs. And so it says draw graphs and write equations. So which tool would we use to draw the graphs? Well, that might be a geometry. So maybe I first say draw the graphs, and then my next set of directions is make equations and now use and plot those equations into the graph sticky. So I could think about this different ways, because the drawing happens in the geometry, but once you have the functions, then you can enter them into the graphing situation. So lots of different ways you could approach making this very interactive, engaging, and them doing the work and seeing it all in one place, in one section. So that's basically it. I was just sharing ideas today of how you don't have to create your own problems and redo. You can use stuff people have already done. You can take something from a textbook or open source and make it, have graphs and things like that, simply by adding things or kind of spreading things out or slightly altering the questions so they have to interact. Are there any questions from anyone that you want to see something different? I know some of you are new to Classpad. So if you have any questions, we have how much time do we have left, Amy?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, and so can they make tables and then those tables are graphed? Oh yeah, absolutely, Patricia. So I'll just show you how that works. So this is all the things you can do. You can do calculations. So pretty much, any type of calculation that you would do. Graphing, you can graph all types of parametrics, functions, whatever you want, logarithms, anything. Geometry, full geometry tool, and here's the data. So I'm wondering if I had one. So yeah, I'm just gonna, these numbers will mean nothing, but I'm going to just type in some numbers. So yes, they can collect table data and make their tables, and then I could probably use this data. Somebody quick, I'm having a brain. So let's say this is Anna, and this is Jason. So for 2 different companies, Anna earns 14 for every 400. Jason earns 9 for every 300. So what kind of data would we do? So maybe we do it by 100s. So I actually should probably have envelopes. And Anna. And let's say we start with 100, 200, 300, 400. Oops. So yeah, Patricia, you can make tables, however. So Jason gets $9 for every 300 envelopes. Wow. So that means he's getting $3 for every 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. And then Anna is getting 14 for every 400. Oh God, what's the math there? Quick. Here, we're going to make it really simple. 14, 28. All right, done.
Yes, that's perfect.
That's pretty good, right? All right, so
Yeah.
obviously, whatever, actually, here's where you can, this is the beauty of Classpad. I could do
Dana just said
400.
350.
Well, I could do a calculation. So this is the nice part about, and when I did a calculation, I need, so 28, what are we going to call it? 2857.
Yeah.
And okay, well, I'm not going to keep going. But now that I have that, so the nice thing is, now Anna's graph's going to be terrible and actually might cause an error. So when you're in the data, if you select the column, the data, the statistical menu comes up. So I want to graph A and B. And so I want to do a graph. And so I could do a scatter plot. And so here is a scatter plot of Jason. And now let's do a scatter plot of Anna. So Anna.
It's actually, it's not 28. It's the opposite.
Oh,
we messed up our calculation.
Right. I messed up my calculation, but that's okay. Anna's graph is terrible, but that's okay. Because the whole point was, yes, you can do a scatter. Yeah, we're doing totally terrible. This point should be going away. Let's go away, right?
Change it to $3.50. 3.5.
Thank you. I did it backwards. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's their graphs, and now you can, because you're in graphs, now they could say, is there a relationship? Is it linear or whatever it is? And now they could come up with their function, and then they could plot their function on top of this, or they could do a regression as well from the statistics menu. So we could do a linear regression, and it'll show the line there. So there's lots of things you could do. And that's the nice thing about Classpad. It pretty much does whatever you want. You can do data, statistics, geometry, graphing. Like I love it. You can do it all in one place and move things around. So any questions?
Well, and that also opens up to like having the students decide how they want to do, how they want to show you the solutions, right? You can
exactly
either open it up or you can make it very targeted. And like Karen said, we can just say, okay, you're going to draw, so we want you to use, geometry and be specific in your instructions.
But I like just that I can move things around, and if I need a calculation, pop up a calculation. So. All right, anyone else? I think I have, 5 minutes left. If we have any other questions. Patricia, any other questions? You're new to this. There's lots of resources. In fact, Amy, maybe pull up the slideshow so that we can see that.
So I teach high school. I teach high school geometry.
Oh, so the geometry.
I should learn this and also teach my students how to use it so they know how to find the tools and stuff.
Yeah, I did a whole webinar, when was that, Amy? Where there's a lot of ready to use activities on geometry, because I am a geometry teacher, so I've been creating a ton of geometry lessons. So there's ones, were you the one doing transformations? There's a ton of stuff already done. So if you were to go into,
yeah, I saw the main page.
There's a lot, and then also there's Amy, are you sharing?
No, you're still sharing.
I'm still sharing.
Because I thought you were going
to. Let me go into our YouTube site.
But I learned today from you that I can also do public stuff, and I didn't know how to do that before. I came into the webinar late because I was with a parent.
That's okay. Where are the videos? There they are. So there's a whole YouTube site that has a bunch of geometry. Tons, because I do a lot of geometry. So you can have your students go there, or you could just take lessons that are already done, and they're just going to be interacting and sort of the learning the tool comes in as they're doing the activity. So a lot of the activities I create are, here's this, do this, and it'll make a graph, and then ask questions. So there is a lot already done out there.
Okay,
so
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And if you don't see a video or something that you would like to have done with like your dynamic geometry, just leave a comment on any of those videos. Karen and I are the ones that look at those, so we can either quickly make another video or kind of direct you to maybe an activity that's already done that maybe you just didn't find or see.
Okay.
But if you go to the main Classpad.net page where the activities are, you'll look under geometry. If you look just under geometry activities, you will see there's a lot. There's a lot in there already. So
Yeah, I was looking
Don't.
for like perpendicular and parallel lines because that's what I'm
It's
doing
it
with my kids
probably
right
is
now.
already there. I bet you. So I would look there first, and if you don't see something, let me know. I can easily create, but
Okay.
there's a ton in there because I am also a geometry teacher, so I tend to do a lot.
I teach SDC, so I like to try to find things that are more interactive and visual for my students.
All of those are. So yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot in there. Absolutely. All right, Amy, I think we're ready to end.
Sure. Let me share my screen. So just in case you guys did not get a chance to see that, the YouTube site is youtube.com/classpad.net. So you can easily find us there, or if you just type in Classpad.net in your search bar, it should pop up. You'll also find some other, we try to highlight things on our social media pages as well. So if you're interested in that. But as Karen said, we have, I'm going to go back a little bit because we have some more upcoming webinars. Next week, we'll be taking a look at our hardware, so our scientific calculator. So moving away from ClassPad, but then the week after that, we're coming back to that, and we're going to take a look at using visuals in mathematics. So to create, dynamic visual representations, variables with variable sliders and functions, and then also switching back over to our hardware again. Also, we are continuing our equity and education webinar series. We have 2 more this month, September 22nd and September 30th, with Dr. Robert Berry and Dr. Mark Ellis. So you can find those on our webinar pages as well to sign up. We hope you guys can join us. And then we'll go back to this last page just in case. As I said, our YouTube channel. And then if you are interested in a certificate of attendance just for like seat hours, you can email us at classpad.net@gmail.com.
And as Amy said, if you are, I can't find anything on this, I wish there were a video on this, on how to do it, just seriously, email there, and it's me and Amy. It's Amy and I. I'm sorry, that's the correct way.
Yes.
And we will do it and make a video or make a lesson. That's sort of our goal here, is to support you guys. So, but thank you again. I really appreciate everyone participating. That makes it a lot more fun for me as a presenter when people are interactive. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. I was shy at first.
Okay.
I know, it's always hard, but yeah.
All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.